Welcome back to the channel. Let's explore together. Today, we're checking out Honest Trailers, the Spider-Man trilogy. This was requested by you guys. Now, I don't know if it's Honest Trailers. It's not Honest Trailers. I was thinking there's one of these channels that does these things that's just so off base. I think it's like Cinema Sins, and they're just the worst. And I was just having like Vietnam flashbacks to them. In any case, this was requested by you guys. If you want to request something that I wouldn't usually react to, check out links in the description below to see how you can do it. Let's see Honest Trailers, the Spider-Man trilogy. I'm pretty sure I've seen videos from these guys and enjoyed them, unlike Cinema Sins, that is a sin of a channel itself.
From the studio that won't let Spider-Man team up with anyone else ever comes the Godfather trilogy of superhero movies, in that the first two are great and the third one sucks ass.
I was about to say, the Godfather comparison, the only one I could think of was the comparison they just made. Man, Spider-Man 3 is bad. I'm sick of people saying that movies that are a meme factory are good. Stop it. They're bad movies that we've made something good out of. Star Wars trilogy, good example, where two movies are unwatchable and one movie's okay, but made to look really good by comparison of the two that came before it. Search your feelings, you know it to be true.
The original Spider-Man trilogy. Prepare for an epic superhero trilogy featuring Spider-Man 1, a story about Peter Parker struggling with his powers, breaking up with Mary Jane, and battling a supervillain who ultimately kills himself.
And then Spider-Man 2, a story about Peter Parker struggling with his powers, breaking up with Mary Jane, and fighting a villain who ultimately kills himself. Except it's done much better. Spider-Man 1 is like the beta test, and then Spider-Man 2 was them getting it correct, which is a bummer because Willem Dafoe ended up being in the lesser of the two first ones. Spider-Man 2 is definitely the best of that trilogy.
Spider-Man 2, a story about Peter Parker struggling with his powers, breaking up with Mary Jane, and battling a supervillain who ultimately kills himself.
There you go.
And Spider-Man 3,
which is, I mean, kind of the same. Sandman sort of kills himself. Yeah, struggling with his powers, breaks up with Mary Jane and dates someone else. Yeah, I mean, they had their plot line and they stuck to it.
a story about Peter Parker struggling with his powers, breaking up with Mary Jane, and battling a supervillain who ultimately kills himself. Wait, did they just make the same movie 3 times in a row? Tobey Maguire stars as Peter Parker, a boy with the face of a puppy.
Well, the face of a 30-year-old. He didn't look exactly like a strapping young lad.
And the voice of a smaller, less threatening puppy.
That's very true. He has a child's voice, though.
I cried like a baby when you played Cinderella.
When this student physicist journalist pizza delivery boy is bitten by a radioactive spider. Blah 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 powers, blah 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 responsibility.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, dude, we get it. Watch Spider-Man soar with his trademark powers of wall crawling and web shooting, plus a few more like spider sense, occasionally.
Yeah, usually the spider sense thing, the Peter Parker of that Maguire trilogy, the Spider-Man Peter Parker, he was nerfed heavy. It's like the weakest version of Spider-Man, which really matches how weak Tobey Maguire seems as a person. But I remember watching it, and it was the best movie hero we had pretty much at the time, aside from I still preferred Tim Burton's first 2 Batman films to Spider-Man. But when it came out, I was like, aside from Tim Burton's Batmans, this is as good as it's gotten. It's definitely the best that Marvel had given us. It was better than Blade and such. You know, the Blade stands are going to come from me, but let's be honest, Blade was, you know, it hasn't aged well. Go watch it again. It wasn't even that great then. But in any case, it was the best that we had, but I remember still being like, wait a minute, why do Peter's webs come out of his wrist? And why is he so weak? Like, Spider-Man could basically dodge bullets, right, in the comics, and even if he got hit by a bullet, he'd probably be all right. And this Peter Parker was just such a wimp. And then Peter Parker usually would just figure out ways to beat his villains through his brain if he couldn't just outfight them. But to be honest, he could usually just outfight them because of how strong Spider-Man was. this version of Spider-Man just tended to get kind of dumb luck, or the villains killed themselves, as it was pointed out, through, Green Goblin tries to launch his glider into him, and Spider-Man actually has a spider sense at that point and jumps over it. And Doc Ock, I think, kind of does a sacrifice of himself sort of thing. And then Sandman just kind of dissipates into the world. We don't really know what happens to him. Venom, he figures out sound messes with him, so he kind of does a smarty boy thing on Venom. And I don't even remember how Hobgoblin dies. I don't even remember what happened in that battle, to be honest. That movie is terrible. Anyway.
Costume design and spider tears.
Tom Holland's emotional moments, for all the unnecessary Tom Holland hate out there, every single one of them is 10 times better than every single one of Tobey's emotional moments. Same goes for Andrew Garfield. Tobey Maguire is the weakest actor of the three. This time you accept this. Are his movies the weakest? No. His movies are up there, especially Spider-Man 2. But he was the weakest actor of the three. His performance is as campy as the films he's in. Which, there's a good part to that. But the films try to take themselves really seriously in a lot of marks, and Tobey Maguire does not deliver in those moments. They wanted to be campy and serious, and in every time it needed to be serious, Tobey Maguire failed. And he failed miserably, and you know it. He was a much better refined actor in No Way Home. He's grown.
Mary Jane, the love of Peter's life and the worst girlfriend ever.
Yeah.
This isn't about you. This is about me.
Grow to hate her snaggletooth face as she cheats on her boyfriend with Spider-Man, cheats on her fiancé with Peter Parker, and cheats on Peter Parker with his best friend. You'll wonder why anyone bothers to save her over and over and over and over and over and over again.
It was pretty confusing. She's not even that hot. Nobody ever understood the MJ part.
You have a knack for saving my life.
Ride along as Spider-Man faces off against iconic supervillains who, despite 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds, all have a personal relationship with Peter Parker, like his professional mentor, Dr. Octopus, his uncle's killer, the Sandman, his rival co-worker, Venom, his best friend's dad, the Green Goblin, and his best friend, the other Green Goblin.
Well, Hobgoblin. It's different.
Watch as these good men gone bad struggle with their inner demons the only way they know how. Golluming.
You killed them. We killed them. No, I'm not a criminal. The real crime would be not to finish what we started. Imagine if he joined us.
Ugh, his face looks a lot better with a mask on.
Hey, you stole that from Weird Al. You stole that from Weird Al. Which Weird Al song is it? I don't remember, but he says he looks much creepier without the mask on. That's a Weird Al joke. Screen Junkies knows it. We all know it. Also, we definitely all know it because in No Way Home, spoilers, you should have seen it by now, Willem Dafoe, one of the first things he does is break the Green Goblin mask so that he won't wear it throughout the movie. And then we get to see his face, which is a much better actor than that plastic Power Rangers looking mask. Moving on. Actually, this is the thumbnail, because Willem Dafoe is the man. Not even going to try to get as intense of a expression as Willem Dafoe. Not something that the likes of me will attempt.
So before you catch the next installment of the hipster reboot, settle in.
When was this made? 2014. Yeah, the next installment of the reboot never came. It never came. So this is before Tom Holland ever did a thing. This was right after what? Maybe this was before The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out? Right before it? Let's see. Or it was right after. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was 2014. So it was right before it came out. Okay, so that installment did end up happening, the second one, which is criminally underrated. I think some people are finally starting to understand that Andrew Garfield's 2 Spider-Man movies, their flaws were in their villains and in Peter Parker being too cool. And that's it. Other than that, they're some of the best representations of Spider-Man we've gotten. It's the best Spider-Man in the suit we've ever gotten, and that's not even up for debate. Andrew Garfield in the suit was the most accurate Spider-Man to the comics we've ever had, and one of the most satisfying on screen we've ever had. Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker didn't really work, and the stories they gave him were pretty wonky, and the villains he got were exceedingly more wonky than that. Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone was great. The moments in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 were amazing. The moments about that in No Way Home were even more amazing. And I'm glad people are finally understanding, way too freaking late, that those movies are actually solid. And I would say both of the Amazing Spider-Mans are obviously easily better than Spider-Man 3. And I'd say The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is about on the same level with the first Spider-Man. Suck my dick. It is, even with its mistakes. Go watch it again, watch them back to back, and understand. Put aside your nostalgia and put on your film appreciation thinking caps. And of course, all three of the films I just mentioned, Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, are probably better than Tom Holland's first two Spider-Man movies. And that's because those just were not interesting movies. Just at all. In any respect. They just... Far From Home and Homecoming, not interesting. Tom Holland was fine, but they were even less interesting than what Andrew Garfield had to work with. They gave Tobey Maguire the best villains and the best Spider-Man stories, and that's really what carried those films more than anything. And they gave the crumbs to Andrew Garfield and the dust to Tom Holland, but luckily No Way Home exists and fixed everything for me, as far as giving me that satisfaction that they kept teasing.
In for two fun, innocent romps about a teenage superhero and a massive turd that managed to ruin Peter Parker, Venom, Gwen Stacy, and the entire franchise in one go.
Yep. They took it all out. This is actually in the movie for some reason. Nobody knows why.
Why are you doing this?
Like, how did this stay in the film?
Please.
Nobody knows.
It's so lame. Oh, God, really?
It's
Now take all this.
pain.
Why?
So much pain.
Humanity. Starring Spider-Man pooping, Osborn the Great and Powerful, Kirsten Starst, Gwen Stefani, Will.i.am Dafoe, Inspector Gadget, Bland Man, Groovy, Ashy Larry,
What?
Black Flubber, and Gopher Face.
Yo, the worst Venom that we could have ever possibly had.
The Spider-Man Trilogy.
They didn't even acknowledge his existence in No Way Home, and it's a good thing they didn't.
Wuss. Be sure to subscribe.
All right, well, let me know what you think in the comments below and what else we should check out. And of course, until we explore again, I will see you next time.